What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk about Virgin Galactic. I want to talk on some of the current data points, break it down on some expectations for this upcoming week, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, it did go down 0.43%. A lot of volatility, so 239 the high, 227 the low. Very low volume, but that's kind of normal for Friday. So 5.7 million shares were traded, 12.3 is the average. There hasn't been any recent news, no SEC filings. Last news came out on December the 19th, and that kind of just gives some anticipation for the end of January, so the next commercial flight on January the 26th, 2024. Aside from that though, we just have to wait for them to confirm their Q4 earnings are locked in, and we'll just have to see if they have some surprises in their back pocket similar to their last earnings. So hopefully they have a lot of good future guidance for 2024. Based on this, they are anticipated to have a lot of good growth. As you can kind of tell, the implied fiscal 2024 forward revenue growth is 99.22%, then 2025, 72.76%, and then 2026 and onwards, 420.46%. And I have said this for a while, that if Virgin Galactic is able to survive for the next year and a half, then they should be set for a lot of bigger and better things. From now until then, though, it will come down to this: their balance sheet and how much money they're burning through. Based on the cash equivalent short-term investments from their last earnings, 997.08 million, 53.13 million in long-term investments, 417 million in debt, and this is how much they are burning through. So obviously in the short term, they don't need to dilute, probably by the end of Q2. That's just my own estimate. I'm not a financial advisor. You guys always do your own due diligence. But because of this, I feel like that's kind of the cause why Virgin has not been participating in this Santa Claus rally that really caused a lot of stocks to go up pretty significantly. Of course, they did kind of participate in some regard, but nowhere near where a lot of other growth stocks went. Despite that though, the Elliott wave and a lot of the other technicals are still a lot more optimistic for Virgin, so I'll kind of give you a good overview of that. When it comes down to this upcoming week, the only thing to really watch for is this. So the next round of CPI. So that's going to be set for January 11th, 2024. And a lot of analysts have come out saying that, you know what, the market is going to continue to trend down up until potentially some positive CPI data, on which that'll reinvigorate the broader market and cause things to go higher. So that's where Virgin might get kind of looped into the broader rally once again, but it'll all come down to CPI once again, just to see if things are actually moving in the right direction. So let me know your thoughts on that. Over and above that though, there has been no recent analyst ratings or anything like that. Shorts, though, have still been getting into Virgin. So 373,000 shares were increased on Friday. 23.76% of the free float is being shorted. 87.08 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow average is kind of in line with, obviously, Thursday, so the day prior, so 1.26%. So obviously, I'm not here to say Virgin is a squeeze play. It's not going to go to the moon or whatever else. It's just, I'm using this as a benchmark. So the fact on Friday that Virgin was flat for the most part, if not slightly red, and shorts increased, they feel like it's justified, and that potentially might be trending down. So this is why I like to analyze this information. Through the interactive broker short availability does indicate that there's around 250,000 shares available to be shorted. Looking right here at some of the options, on Friday, $77,000 in calls being purchased, 397,000 in puts. Sentiment-wise, not really much because it's kind of neutral. 75% of all the options being done on Friday were just neutral. So clearly just collecting premiums or whatever else. Looking on the call options that were purchased, there's a good indication that people are anticipating for it to be above $3 by January the 19th. And that conveniently is similar to what the Elliott wave is pointing to. Looking at puts, it is anticipated to be sub $2. So more of a continuation of a downtrend. But before I get into the Elliott wave and whatever else, I just wanted to play one quick minute of this video and kind of talks on what analysts are really looking for data point wise in the broader market and what that might translate to for the rest of the year. Because I found this video kind of interesting and I feel like this would be very relevant for Virgin Galactic investors.
Happy New Year, Scott. Are you wavering at all by virtue of what's gone on this week?
We're not wavering, but it's clearly not a good start to the year. I mean, markets almost got to an all-time high at the end of last year, and the first 4 trading days of this year have been really terrible. I mean, I can see what the market's struggling with because, as your guest previously talked about, part of it is when the Fed cuts, and I think people are still jumpy about a strong labor market and if inflation is softening. But our base case still remains that, we're going to see all-time highs in January. And then I think the market is tough in the first half of this year because of some of those things. But we'll overall end up strong by the end of the year.
But you're not rethinking your own outlook at all by, how, I mean, you obviously sound somewhat concerned by the way this year has started. Maybe it didn't go according to your plan. So how's that all factoring into your psyche?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it is disappointing because, the year tends to play out in January. So the fact that we're, sort of had a failed Santa Claus rally in the first 5 days is pretty important, and the market looks like it's going to be negative, just tells you that the fundamentals, which have been improving, aren't necessarily going to convince investors to be buying stocks. So I do think it's telling us it's going to be a tough year. But the reason we're not wavering is that the reasons we think 2024 will be a good year for stocks has to do with the fact that the PMIs are bottoming and inflation's falling like a rock, and the Fed has pivoted and is now managing a business cycle. I mean, those are really good anchors and supports for why stocks can do well, but
So yeah, ultimately he kind of goes on to explain that it's just the data. So next data is going to be CPI on January 11th. A lot of analysts have more focused on CPI, saying that is going to be the key pivotal point that kind of causes things to go up in combination with just the Feds, whether they might be cutting 4 or maybe 6 times throughout 2024. I don't know, it's all over the place, but that's kind of what analysts are thinking about. I just wanted to play this video for you because I found it kind of interesting. But like I said, Elliott wave. So based on the Elliott wave, it does show and have a pivot point of 207. So as long as Virgin stays above 207, this is going to be holding out to be true. And if that is true, then it is anticipating for it to go anywhere between 332 and 357 in the short term, which kind of matches with what the options were saying. So kind of convenient based on that. And so far, Virgin has been holding its gains rather well. For being a very extremely volatile stock, like Virgin's been doing good. But I feel like one thing that's been really holding it back is just it doesn't have that shimmer, if that makes sense. So it doesn't really have a lot of good catalysts that investors can justify to get in for the long term. There's still a lot of questionable things, so I feel like this upcoming earnings and their fiscal 2023, that is going to really solidify whether long investors are going to get in or not. So over the next month and a half, I feel like a lot of volatility for Virgin is going to happen, but bigger and better things, I believe, are in its future. And this is why I still cover it. Not as often. This is the very first time I've done it in 2024, covered Virgin, but I still really do like the stock. And I do see a lot of upside coming with it in Q1 2024. As I've said, I've always said that time and time again. But even though the Elliott wave technicals do say that, I like to always go over some of the fib levels just to give you a good understanding of some of the strong support and resistance points. So with it closing at 233 on Friday, it is currently trading between this S2 and this S1. So this S2 so far has held. That's the next strong support. Vice versa, 238, which conveniently that was the high roughly on Friday as well. So it is just range bound between these 2 points. It does need either a nice push up for it to trend up into maybe the S1 to the pivot. If not, if the market continues to be negative, it might actually drag Virgin down into this S3 to this S2. But in comparison, like I said, Virgin is doing rather well. A lot of growth stocks have been hit quite hard and are currently trading between this S3 and this S2. And in some extreme cases, there's some growth stocks below this S3. So all in all, Virgin's doing rather well in my opinion. I could be wrong. Let me know your thoughts on that. Give yourself a shout out. Have you been buying Virgin? Have you been selling? Like, what have you been doing? Or are you one of those individuals that have been doing options just to either collect some premiums or whatever else? What have you been doing? And don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And as well, take advantage of this promo. Has been extended up until January the 15th. Sign up for an account with Moonwoo, throw $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So this is one of the best deals in the market. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.